Hello, this is Jerry Mitchell, and we are back with another episode of the Libertarian Uncensored podcast, going over all the posts on the Libertarian Uncensored subreddit. Let's get right into it. First, we have email sheds new light on Texas House candidate Jared Woodfield's role in Southern Baptist leader's sex abuse scandal from TexasTribune.org. And that's from Kage blah blah blah. And I didn't comment on that one, but it just goes to show you that all these politicians, they're all really corrupt, and that's why I think we have to abolish politics and just let everyone let everyone govern themselves. Because I think most people govern themselves completely fine, and increasingly, I just think politics is nothing but grift, and I think that's a good reason to get rid of it as we currently know it. Then we have South Carolina Bill H 4624, a bill to prohibit gender transition procedures to person under 18. My title taken from Bill Summary, and that's from scstatehouse.gov from Doctor Who 07. And I said, I personally think that's fair. It's something that I don't think kids can consent to, just like I don't think they can consent to sex. With that being said, I still don't care for the state being involved in medical matters whatsoever. I don't think children should be getting any non-life-saving medical treatment. Like, if someone wants to have their legs removed because they think they don't belong on them, I think they should be able to do so, but I wouldn't agree with having it done if they are underage. So that's something as well, And, they always say, oh, do you oppose dental braces? Because dental braces are the exact same as double mastectomy. I always hate when shit libs use it as a gotcha. And that's my thoughts there. The thing is that, I personally don't, if people want to have the force to, do the double mastectomies and vaginoplasties for the children, I guess that, it's ultimately who has the force to do what. I personally think you could easily argue it's a NAP violation, but ultimately it does depend on who has the force to do what. So that's my thoughts on, that issue, I would say. Then we have another wedding venue with a human rights violation. No LGBTQ allowed. People should have no fundamentalist Christians allowed on their businesses to see how that well they like it. I bet they will claim persecution. And that's just over one, a cross post from the Grand Rapids subreddit, and it's a it's a post from the Old Wooden Barn in Hudsonville, Michigan, who says, our marriage policy, because God has ordained marriage and defined it as the covenant relationship between a man, a woman, and himself. The Old Wooden Barn will only recognize marriages between a biological male and a biological man and a biological woman. Further, the staff of the Old Wooden Barn should only participate in host weddings between a man and a woman. We thank you for respecting our Christian family values. And, I said, I think it falls under freedom of association and freedom of religion, in my opinion. I don't particularly care for it, but a private business should be able to associate with it and serve whoever it wants to. So then we have, does the TSA actually keep us safe? From Common Sense Soapbox on YouTube. And I posted that, and I said, none of the government agencies really do. They all say, oh, we're going to keep you safe, but ultimately, you can't just it's ultimately, what they really do is take your freedom away, and as Ben Franklin said, he who gives up freedom, liberty, for essential liberty for safety deserves neither liberty nor safety, and that's what you see with stuff like when it comes to the TSA, I would say. So that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have removing Rule 10, the civility rule, from Ninja Lover, and I didn't comment on that one, but I definitely would agree. We need as few rules as possible, because rules are just justification for censorship, and that's why I don't think we should have any rules, I would say. as long as, the nap isn't being violated. So that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have Toward the Libertarian Theory of Class, Part 1, from Praxeology.net from Monarchical Federation. And they said libertarianism needs a theory of class. This claim may meet with resistance among some libertarians. A few will say the analysis of society in terms of classes and class struggles is a specifically Marxist approach, resting on assumptions that libertarians reject. Why should we care about class? A greater number will say we recognize that class theory is important, but libertarianism doesn't need such a theory because it already has a perfectly good one. And I guess I would fall more so into the latter category, I would say. So I think, if you want to make everything about class, I think you should be able to. Or social class, racial class, economic class, gender class, etc., etc. But with that being said, I personally think, it's just a way to divide people into different groups. I think if people want to do that on their own, I think they should be able to, but I don't think they should be forced to do so. And that's what I think academia also always tries to do. They try and force people into different groups, and that's why I particularly don't really care for it. So that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have Biden wins the New Hampshire Democratic primary as a writing candidate from NBC News, and I posted that and I said, I was hoping that him spurning New Hampshire would be enough to push Phillips or Williamson or even Supreme over the hill, but sadly that's not the world we live in. At least I can take solace in the fact that Haley lost the GOP primary. And then Shervix13 said it's all rigged anyway. And I commented, Biden seems to think that as well. He said at a recent rally in Virginia, oh, Terry McAuliffe is the real governor of Virginia, not Glenn Youngkin. And that's why, I think everyone increasingly thinks the elections are rigged when their party loses. So that's, increasingly, I think we just need to get rid of these elections. I think they're too toxic, and it's all just grifting anyway. If you want Donald Trump to be your president, you can have Donald Trump as your president. If you want Joe Biden to be your president, you should have Joe Biden as your president. If you want to be your own president, I think you should be able to be your own president. So that's my thoughts on that issue. I think everyone should just do whatever they want to as long as it's not hurting anyone else. So I don't think that's why I think we just gotta get rid of all these elections. Then we have Toward a Libertarian Theory of Class, Part 2 from Praxeology.net by Anarcho Federation. And they said, the completion of the article from Robert T. Long after figuring out libertarian class theory, for some reason they aren't in a single file. And, I think that's just, if you want to have class, as we just talked about, if you want to have class theory, I think you should be able to, but I don't think you should be forcing that down other people's throats, I think the big thing with a lot of people these days is they have their own beliefs, but they want to shove them down other people's throats, and that's not something I particularly care for, I would say. Then we have r/Libertarian Uncensored discusses and grades the U.S. Vice President's number 15, Hannibal Hamlin. And I posted that, and I said, a former Democrat, Hamlin, Abraham Lincoln's first VP, split with the party over the slavery issue, specifically the passage of the Kansas-Nebraska Act in 1856, and joined the newly formed Republican Party. At the time of his election as VP, he was a senator from Maine. Lincoln ended up replacing Andrew Johnson as VP for his next term in an effort to show unity of Southerners, so if Lincoln was assassinated a few months earlier, Hamlin would have been president. Final grade C. Thoughts. And I commented, looks like he had a neckbeard. He could have been a Redditor if he was around today. That's just me being a little cheeky there. Then we have Demystifying Left Monarchianism from c4ss.org by Narrate1. And I said I didn't comment on that one, but I think if you want to think monarchism is a left-wing ideology, you should be able to. If you think it's a right-wing ideology, you should be able to. Just let everyone think whatever they want, and that's my thoughts on that issue, I would say. Then we have Republicans are urging Texas to ignore the Supreme Court at the border, and that's from BusinessInsider.com from Zachness. And I said, from a libertarian perspective, I would say, it is libertarians support nullification down to the individual level. So, I personally disagree with the reasons they're using the nullification for here. But I think if they want to do nullification, they should be able to do nullification. And that's my thoughts on that issue, I would say, because, the courts, as the courts only have the power that the people are willing to give them. So that's my thoughts on that issue because, Dr. 07 replied to that, I consider myself a former libertarian, but still respect the rule of law of the processes of the law. And I said that's interesting because the U.S. government clearly doesn't care, clearly doesn't go after people who is bombing or drone striking currently. The U.S. government doesn't care about the rule of law, so why should I or anyone else for that matter? So that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have Texas man allegedly raped in jail after AI wrongly identifies him as robbery suspect despite having alibi from ibtimes.sg, and that's from Kage blah blah blah. And I didn't comment on that one, but just goes to show you how the government can throw you in jail for any reason whatsoever, and sometimes there's nothing you can do about it if you don't have force on your side. That's why I don't think we should let the government have a monopoly on force. They can use it to do things like this. That's my thoughts there. Then we have Greg Abbott on X. My statement on Texas's constitutional right to self-defense from Year.net from Dr. Who 07. And I said, nullification for the win. I don't care for the reasons they're doing it either, but I still support nullification. It's still nullification, which I support. And, people increasingly see the courts as legitimate when they rule on what they deem to be the wrong, what they deem to be. So people increasingly see the courts as legitimate when they rule on what they deem to be the wrong way. As Andrew Jackson said, John Marshall has made a decision that let him enforce it. The decisions of the court mean nothing if they don't have force on their side. So if ultimately, if the U.S. government wants to use force, and if the Texas state government wants to use force, it's ultimately they can do whatever they want as long as I guess if you want to believe, I personally am more on the open border side, but it ultimately depends on who has the force to do what. And increasingly, we don't know the two sides who both have claimed to have monopoly on force disagree with each other. So the issue is who gets to use force to do what, and ultimately, we'll see if they end up using force against each other. I think that would be interesting, but I don't know if that would happen. But we'll see. We'll see. Then we have Trump may take the witness stand in sex abuse defamation trial from PBS.org by International Silver One across from the PBS NewsHour subreddit. And, yeah, if he wants to, I think he should be able to, but I don't think he should be forced to do so. So that's my thoughts on that issue, I would say. Then we have Bill Ackman's battle of the Ivy League is more about more than DEI. Gen Z are graduating without the right behavioral and emotional skills for the workplace from Fortune.com by Zachness. And they added in the first few paragraphs, I thought I was going to disagree with the article's theme, but by the end they actually came around to some good points. I think Ackman is acting fool for and bandwagoning for anti-woke cultural politics, but there is good discussion to be had in between limiting hate speech and teaching the skills of civil discourse while disagreeing. And I think, I think people should just give civil discourse, but I do think hate speech is free speech. I think all speech is free speech, and that's something that's a hill I'm willing to die on. So that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have Convention of States Action from conventionofstates.com by Narco Federation. And they found out about this. Well, I'm emphatically left libertarians, organizations led by more right-wing constitutionalist conservatives. We share a common goal of eliminating the federal government, though I definitely wouldn't just get rid of the welfare state. An actual conservative approach would be necessarily as to gradually diminish federal organisms, but without harming people on welfare by an abrupt shift. Mostly what I would want from anarchism is a genuine classical liberalism that's a Georgia's liberal night watchman state, and mainly implementing the LVT as the only means of taxation for now. We're definitely due for a constitutional convention and overall government, though. Just keep those Project 2025 dominionists out of it. So, I guess I would agree with that. The thing is, I just think, we should just start over from square one, let everyone have their own government. If they want to consent to their own to another constitution, I think they should be able to, but I don't think they should be forced to, so, and that's a big problem I have with the current constitution, is that you're pretty much forced to consent to it, even if you weren't around back when it was first written. Then we have r/Libertarian Uncensored discusses and grades the U.S. Vice Presidents, number 17, Skylar Colfax. Skylar Colfax, I don't know how to pronounce it. Ulysses S. Grant's first VP. He's one of only 2 VPs to also serve as Speaker of the House, along with John Nance Garner. And since the VP is also President of the Senate, that means he was one of the only 2 people to preside over both houses of Congress. He thought that Grant was only going to serve 1 term and ended up losing to Henry Wilson for VP renomination. Otherwise, his vice presidency was relatively remarkable, though he was named in the Credit Mobile scandal as accepting bribes, though in fairness, pretty much every high-ranking politician at the time was also named in it. Final grade, C-. Faults. And yeah, so that's my thoughts on that. And then I think we're going to wrap it there. I'll see you guys next episode. Bye.